Hello, my name is Miss Stephanie and I work in the children's room, but I've been doing macrame for a little over a year, and so I'm gonna teach you how to do some keychains. First, I want to give you a quick history. Macrame is the art of making knots with your hands. It's different than crochet or knitting because you don't use any tools. And it's been around since about the 13th century, but the people who actually made macrame the most famous are sailors. And it's kind of interesting because they brought it all over the world and they had a lot of time on their hands, and macrame is very practical because knotting, obviously, as a sailor, that's so much of your life. And then they sold their hammocks and belts and hats and all different kind of things to people all over the world. And in the 1970s, macrame became very popular in the United States, and probably in the last 10 years it's made a comeback. So macrame is for everybody. It's for guys and girls and anyone who's interested. And today we're going to make keychains, which everyone needs a keychain. So the goal is to give you really close-up directions on doing the macrame. So we're going to do it in sections, and then I'm going to switch to do an overhead camera. So hopefully you get really good images and you can follow along. So a few things that you're going to need to start with, and that should come in your kit. So you're going to get cord. Macrame is string, cord, or rope, and there is a difference. I'm going to make an additional video that gives you some beginner terms and things like that if you're interested in doing them more than just keychains. But this is macrame cord. So you have pieces of that are natural and gray. You're going to have some beads. You're going to have, these are called lobster claw toggles. This is what we're going to build our keychains on. That's what's going to be in your kit. And then you will want some way to anchor down your keychains. So I am going to use some good tape. I'm going to show you also how to do it on a corkboard, and I'm going to show you on a clipboard, different ways that you can anchor it. And you're going to need scissors. I think one of the things that is really important about macrame, but definitely not necessary, is sharp scissors. So, anyway, you're gonna need scissors. You may want some Scotch tape to help you put the cord through the bead, but it's not necessary. But that'd be another thing that you might want to keep close. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first keychain we're gonna make is this keychain right here. This keychain takes 3 different knots, probably the 3 most basic knots. So the first knot we're going to start with is called a lark's head knot. So what you're going to do, and you can use your natural cord or your gray cord, it's up to you, but you're going to take I'm going to take my gray cord, I'm going to match up the cut ends, and I'm going to fold it directly in half like this. And then going to take my toggle on your flat part. You're going to have a loop here. You put your loop through your keychain, open it up, and pull the cords through. Okay, so right here, you've made a lark's head knot. Okay. We're going to do that a second time because we need 2 cords for this keychain. So another piece of gray. I'm going to find the halfway point, makes a loop. I'm going to stick it through my circle. I'm going to open that circle up, and I'm going to pull those cords through that circle, just like this. So now I have 2 lark's head knots. Okay, so that's what you're going to use to do this keychain. Now, the next thing I need to do is put tension on it to make my knots. So I'm going to do that. Let me see if I can back this up just a little bit and get myself a little more room. There we go, on the table. This time I'm going to show you how to do that just with a piece of sturdy tape. So I'm just going to place the tape firmly over the keychain like this, and that should give me some tension so I can pull. All right, so the next knot, which will be the most what we're going to do the most is the square head knot. That is a combination of two different half knots. So you're going to, the two center cords are your filler cords, so they're not going to move, and your two outer cords are the ones that are going to do the knotting. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my left hand cord, and I'm going to make a triangle, just like this, okay? Then I'm going to take my right cord, and I'm going to go over your left cord, under your two filler cords, and through the circle right here, and pull it. Okay, so now I have two cords going this direction. You're going to put some tension on these middle ones, and you're going to slide this knot up to the top, just like that. And so you've made your first half knot. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing, except for with the other direction. So I'm going to take my right cord, and I'm going to make a triangle. And then I'm going to take my left cord, I'm going to go over my right cord, under my filler cords, and through the hole. And I'm going to pull. And the best way to get this knot together is to hold your two centers and pull towards the top. Okay, we're going to do 4, so we've done 1 square knot. So that's going both directions is 1 square knot. We're going to do 4 square knots. We're going to put a bead in, and then we're going to do 4 more. All right, so square knot. We're going to take our left cord, make a triangle, take our right cord, go over, under, and through. And you're going to hold your two middle cords, and you're going to pull up. Okay, and then you're going to take your right cord, triangle, left cord, over, under, and through, and you're going to start pulling. And once you get to the point where you're going to make it tight, you put tension on your two center cords. Now we have 2 square knots. Okay, left cord, triangle, right cord, over, under, through, start to pull, get tension on your two centers, and you pull up. Okay, now your right side, right triangle, you're going to go over the right, under the two centers, and through the hole. You're going to start to pull, then you need tension, and now we just made 3 square knots. So I'm going to do 1 more. If you ever get lost in your project and you're not 100% sure if you just did your left or you just did your right, or you set your project down and you want to pick it up again, you can always tell in a square knot where to start, because when you do a square knot, it leaves a bump here. So you're always going to want to start on the side that has the loop. So my loop is on the left, so I'm going to start with my left cord. Left triangle, right is going to go over the left, under the filler cords, and through the hole. And one of the things with macrame, what makes macrame so pretty, is that the more consistent and steady your knots are, that's what makes it pretty. So keychains are a great way to practice your knots, because you're not going to waste a lot of material, and there's going to be a lot of forgiveness, and they're usually pretty simple. Okay, so I have 4 square knots in a row. Whenever I have a series of knots in a row, we call that a sinnet. That's what it's called. So I have a sinnet of square knots, and now I'm going to put a bead on it. So I'm going to take my 2 filler cords here. Yeah, there we go. And your bead has a nice big hole in it. So because it has a nice big hole, I can pretty much just insert my cords into the bead. Sometimes it's really tight, and then you might want to use Scotch tape to like wrap your ends so they're nice and tight, or sometimes you just want to like poke them through, or sometimes I use a needle. All right, so you slip your bead all the way up here, and now we're just going to tie 4 more square knots to keep that bead in place. So I'm going to take my left cord, I'm going to make a triangle, I'm going to go over, under my fillers and through. And so I'm going to keep that nice and tight to really lock that bead in place, but it's a little bit tricky because you don't want that bead to be displaced. So you want it to stay centered on your cord. There we go. You do right triangle, over, under, through, and you're going to pull. Good. Okay, and we're going to do 3 more so we're nice and even. Square knots are really the foundation for so many patterns. A lark's head knot is what a lot of pieces start with. It's how you attach cord to like dowel rods if you're going to build a tapestry, or for this instance, like onto your keychain. But then the square knot is what forms a lot of our patterns. They're nice because they're symmetrical a lot of times, and they're just very clean looking, and so they can create a very nice decorative pattern here. Okay, let's count how many square knots we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so if you wanted, you could have done maybe 5 and 5. I would suggest keeping these equal. That's my preference. You could do 3 and 3. Probably not any more than 5, because otherwise you're going to run out of cord. Okay, so I'm going to teach you the very last cord that we're going to do, or the last knot we're going to do, and then we'll trim it and be done. So the last knot I'm going to show you is called the gathering knot. So you're going to take a piece of cord, and you're going to need to trim it. I would maybe trim it about 18 inches. So I'm going to take my, and this will probably be way plenty, but 18 inches. So now I have a shorter piece of cord. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with your cord facing up, and I'm going to push it onto my bottom, and I'm going to make a loop just like this. So that loop ends right below your 4th square knot. And then I'm going to take this string and I'm going to wrap it around. And I'm going to wrap it around as many as you like to, think visually, however much you like it, but also enough that it's going to stay nice and tight, because this is what's going to keep your knots from unraveling. So I think I'm going to do it one more time, and again, you're just keeping this nice and tight. Okay, so I have taken my cord around 4 times. It's kind of the look that I want. Now I'm going to take this end that's left over, and I'm going to slip it through this circle here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this through the circle. So I have one end. Now I'm going to take this cord that's at the top here, and I'm going to pull it, so it's going to make that slip, or that circle there, it's going to pull it tight to my wraps here. Once I have this part tight to my wraps, I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim this cord here pretty close, because what I want to do is this circle is pulling this cord into here, and I want it to go underneath my loops, so I can't see it any longer. So you can see I'm pulling it and it's disappearing, and I might need to shift these just a little bit. Okay, so now I have a knot underneath my wrapped cords, so that's going to hold that very nice and tight. So now I'm just going to trim this as very close as I possibly can. And again, that's where nice sharp scissors help. And I might bring this bottom, or this top loop here, and just bring it over that piece. And now you can't see those at all. And now I have a nice, tight, finished keychain. So visually, you can kind of decide. I think I'm going to go about right here. And here's my first keychain. Very good. Okay. The second keychain I'm going to show you is this one right here. Whenever I made this keychain for myself, I decided to finish it with some embroidery floss to give it some color. You can choose to find some embroidery floss. Usually you can get it fairly inexpensively at Walmart. I think easily less than $1. But you can also finish it with just a regular cord. So I'll show you with a regular cord because that's what's in your kit. So this keychain has the lark's head knot, just done a little bit differently. It has just half knots, which causes the spiral look, and the exact same a gathering knot. So exact same knots as you did before, they're just done in a little bit different way. All right, and this time I'm going to use a clipboard for my tension. All right, so I'm going to use natural cord this time. So we're going to do the difference this time is that I am going to do my lark heads knot with both of my cords together. So I'm going to start with both of them together just like this, and I'm going to join them right here. So I have all 4 ends together. I'm going to make it nice and flat here. And then, so I have 2 cords that are a loop. I'm going to put both cords through here. I'm going to open up this circle here and pull all 4 center cords together. So my lark head knot is one big knot instead of last time when I did 2 separate lark heads knot. This one is one big. So exact same function, they're attaching into this, they just have a little bit different look. And I might say maybe a little bit of more of a contemporary look. The one thing that I don't necessarily always like about this is it has a tendency sometimes to slide on your keychain. It's not changing the aesthetic or anything, it might just be a little bit annoying. So I have my cords attached. Again, I have 4 cords here. So I'm going to take my clipboard and I'm going to slip the top underneath this part right here. So that's going to give me my tension. So this time, instead of doing a full square knot, which is a left, right, this one we're just going to do left, or you could do just right. So I'm going to make my triangle, left triangle. I'm going to pull my right. It's going to go over my left, under, and through. I'm going to pull it tight. There we go. Now I'm just going to repeat that exact same thing. I'm just going to keep making left hand half square knots. So you can see how I told you earlier, this loop here is going to alternate in between on a continuous half one on the same side. They're all going to stay on the right hand side, which is what's going to cause your spiral. Okay, so left triangle, we're going to go over, under, through. We're going to put some tension on your middle cords. And this can get just a little bit tricky because obviously we're starting to get that spiral. So I usually kind of, when I do it flat, I twist it so it pulls it straight, but then let it kind of curve so it can do its thing. The only thing you have to watch out about that is that you keep just doing the left hand side, the same cord, because it's easy when it starts to flip to switch sides, and that's going to break your spiral. And you kind of just do this as long as you have enough cord to keep going and you like it aesthetically. So triangle, over, under, through, putting some tension on your, so I'm usually slipping the 2 filler cords, the 2 center cords, in between my 4th finger and my ring finger, and that's kind of what's holding them for me. It's also important that they stay straight, so you don't get your knots all kinked up. So again, I'm kind of twisting it to get it nice and tight and all the same, and then it's going to twist itself right back. Now you're not going to have enough cord in your bag probably to do all of the different keychains. You're going to have to choose which keychain. So you don't have to do this one. You don't have to do the first one. I just wanted to show you a wide variety so that you can choose what kind of keychains you like the best. But you should have enough to make maybe 3 more keychains. All right. So I'm going to make this nice and tight, and I'm going to check my spiral. So again, whenever I'm done, I am going to twist it a little bit more. You can see just how it has a nice like spiral pattern. I think for a keychain, this is a nice length. I can maybe add a couple more, but I think I'm going to be done. So, so now the next thing we're going to do is add our gathering knot. Oh, here it is. Okay. So reminder how to do it. You take one side of your cord here. I'm going to, again, just kind of lay this flat so I can get a nice good knot. So the one end is going to point up like this, and you're going to anchor it onto your knots. And you're going to hold it there, and you're going to make a loop. Just like that. So you have a loop there. Now I'm going to hold this nice and tight, and I'm going to start wrapping this cord around all of your other cords, just like this. Just give it, and you can use the same color cord here. You could use natural. I just chose a contrasting cord so you can maybe see it. So I wrapped it. This is my 3rd time, 4th. I think I'm going to give it 5 times this time. So here's what that looks like. I've wrapped. I have my one cord going up straight, and I have my loop here. So I'm going to take this end, and I'm going to slip it through the loop, just like this. And I'm going to take the top one, and I'm going to pull it until my loop is right there underneath my wraps. Okay, I'm going to come in with my sharp scissors. I'm going to trim it. I'm going to pull that the rest of the way up so that end disappears underneath my wraps, just like that. Sometimes you have to be careful. If you pull too hard, that loop will come right at the center, and then you don't have any knot. Okay, so I have my loop underneath my ties. It's nice and tight. I'm going to come in. I'm going to trim this close, and I'm going to tuck. And again, I'll probably pull these wraps up just a little bit to give that a cover. There we go. And I'm going to come in. I'm going to cut my cord like this. I'm going to show you a way to then, so we have this nice spiral pattern keychain. We're going to frizz out the ends here a little bit. So cord is actually 3 strands that are wrapped together. So if I want to make this fuzzy looking, what I'm basically going to do is just unwrap these cords. So I take a cord, and you see right now it's twisted this way. I just start twisting it the opposite way. So it makes those looser until they all just pop out. Just like this. Do that with my other 2 cords, so it's twisted this way, so I'm going to untwist it. I'm going to separate them. So separate these out. Has a little bit of a fuzzier look there. It just gives it a little bit of a different, sometimes you might need to trim it so it's nice and so I can trim it. There we go. There's your second keychain if you'd like to do this. All right, the 3rd keychain I'm going to show you is this one. Your bead might look differently. It doesn't really matter what kind of bead you use here. But one of the things we're going to focus on this one is called an alternating square knot. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so this time I'm also going to show you how to anchor your keychain on a corkboard. So this is the corkboard I use a lot at home, especially if I'm doing smaller projects. And at home I have it anchored to a piece of wood to sit on my lap, but here I've just tucked it inside of my clipboard. You can get a lot thicker corkboard. This one's fairly thin. You can kind of see it's not super thick. But for what I use it for, this is all that I need. Okay, so I take my my keychain toggle, and I just use a pin, and I just pin it in there a little bit of an angle, and that's going to give me my tension. All right, so we're going to start with 4 lark-heads knots. Now I have all 4 of my cords on here. They're a little tight, but that'll be good. Give us a little bit of a wider keychain than we've had before. All right. So I'm going to start with 2 square knots. So I'm going to take the 2 left-hand cords. I'm going to use my middle as my fillers here, right? So I'm going to make my left triangle like this. And then my right is going to go over, under, and through. So here's my first half, my left half, right? And I'm going to do my right, so right triangle, over, under, through. Are you an expert already at square knots here? So here's 1 square knot. Then I'm going to take my right 2 cords and I'm going to make another square knot. So left. As you notice, I've done this so many times. My triangles get a lot smaller that I'm doing, and I'm holding it all in one hand. Okay, so we have 2 square knots. It might take you a little bit longer to do this. You can just pause. Now I'm going to do an alternating square knots. So what that's going to do is it's going to start bringing your project together. So on larger scope projects, it's what makes your cords not go all over the place. It's going to tie them together. So I'm going to take my 2 left-hand cords. So I have, right now I have 8 cords, right? So I'm going to take my 2 left-hand and I'm going to put them out of the way. And I'm going to take my farthest 2 right-hand cords and I'm going to put those out of the way. And I'm going to take then the 4 cords that are in the middle and I'm going to do a square knot here. So I'm going to take my left cord and make my triangle. So this is the center right hand cord of my top one. So you see it has, you know, a left hand cord, a left center, a right hand cord. So this is my right center. I'm going to make a left triangle. I'm going to take, on this one, I'm going to make my left center. I'm going to go over, under, and through. I'm going to grab my 2 middle cords and I'm going to tighten just like that. Now I'm going to finish this square knot. So because I have 2 square knots and an alternating square knot, all 4 of these cords now are tied together and they're going to slip around together instead of being separate. All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to do 2 square knots with my original 4. So my 4 cords on the left, which are the cords I used for my original square knot. So I'm going to make a left triangle, go over, under, and through. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to pull your square knot tight against your center one, but that's going to leave a bigger span there because there's nothing there. These cords haven't been used for anything in that space. So you're just going to want to try to make it look nice and even. And it takes a little bit of practice, but I know that you'll be able to do it. Okay, so there's 1. And 2. So again, your square knot, you're going to take it up tight against your middle one, which is going to leave a gap right here. And again, you want these to be equal with each other. You want this gap to be the same. That's what's going to be the most aesthetically pleasing. So 2 square knots, 1 square knot, 2 square knots that are equidistance, and equal tension. Now, if you want, you could just continue this pattern for maybe 5 or 6 times and have a solid keychain here with alternating square knots. That makes a nice look too. But I'm going to actually put a bead in it. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and insert my bead. So where I put my bead, I need to figure out the 2 cords that are going to be my filler cords for my center alternating knot. So let's figure out what's going to be, what 4 cords we're using for our knot. So we're going to take our 2 furthest left and we're going to put them to the side. And we're going to take our 2 furthest to the right, put put them to the other side. So now I have my 4 cords that I'm going to use for my alternating knot here. We're going to take the center 2 cords right here, and this is what my bead's going to go through. Okay, so this hole is not nearly as big as my first one, so I'm just going to do one cord at a time. So I'm just going to kind of shove it in there. Once I have a nice amount of strings, grab them and pull. And then I'm going to tuck this kind of tight along the edges so I have as big of opening as possible. Now this bottom of this cord is kind of frayed, so I'm going to come in with my sharp scissors. I'm just going to cut it above where it was frayed. Just like that. Okay, that'll help me get it through here. So make sure that you go the right direction. So I need to put the top in this way. I'm going to put it in there, and whenever it's giving me some tension, I'm going to kind of twist it in the direction that the cord is twisted, and that's going to help me get it through here. Hopefully. Yep, here we go. Now it's starting to come through. Now I have some of those strings, so I'm just going to grab and pull. All right, so now I can take my cord and pull it all the way up to the center. Now I'm going to do an alternating square knot. Sorry, let me get this out of the way. I need a little bit more room. I'm going to do a left triangle, right, under, over, under, and through. Okay, and again, I'm going to do it nice and tight so that that bead stays in place, but not too tight that it pushes the bead under or over. And I'm going to finish my square knot here. So now I have my bead anchored in place. All right, let's go back and do 2 square knots. So I'm going to grab my foremost to the left, and this time it's going to leave a big gap right here. So I'm going to pull this up tight until it gets to the bottom of this one, and just try to make sure that this space here looks nice and even. And I'm going to finish my square knot. Just like that. Okay. And again, our goal is to get them to be exactly the same size and exactly the same tension. So I'm going to pull it up. There we go. I think that looks good. All right, I'm going to give me some tension on my middle too. Okay, and I'm going to do one more set of, so I'm going to do a center knot. So an alternating knot, I'm going to take my 2 to the left and put them away, and my 2 to the right. I'm going to make a square knot of my center 4. Just like that. There we go. And I'm going to do a knot over here and a knot over here, and then I'm going to do a gathering knot to finish my keychain. There we go. You can leave them together like this, or you can frame like you did earlier. Okay, the last keychain I'm going to show you is actually going to introduce a new knot called a double half hitch knot. It's going to be this keychain right here, and this one actually just has 2 knots. It has a lark's head knot, and then this diagonal pattern you see here, that's our double half hitch knot. I'm going to go back to my clipboard for my tension. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is put 3 cords onto my keychain. So I'm going to attach them using the lark's head knot. Okay, so I'm going to clip this in to be my tension. So right now I have 6 cords attached to my keychain. I'm going to divide them in half. So my middle cord is going to be divided between my 2 sides. Okay, so I'm going to take this, so I have 3 on the left and 3 on the right. So I'm going to take my rightmost of my left, and I'm going to hold it so it goes crisscross in a diagonal pattern over here. This is what creates your shape. So this is called our filler cord, creates the shape. These are our 2 working cords. This is what we're going to tie the knot on. So my left one of my, so I'm going to take my left cord of my middle knot, and I'm going to hold it in my left hand, and the right cord of my first one, so the next one beside it, I'm going to take in my right hand. So it's, my left cord is over, and I'm going to take my right one over and through that loop, and then you're going to pull it up right here. So that's your half hitch. So this is over. So this is going to go, bring those together, goes through the loop and pull tight. So your left hand right here, your filler cord isn't moving. Your right cord is doing all of the moving and the knotting. Okay, so now I have one double half hitch knot. So to make this knot complete, you have to do it 2 times. Okay, so I'm going to take this farthest cord and I'm going to bring it underneath the filler cord. I'm going to bring them together. I'm going to bring it over, around, and through that knot, and then I'm going to slide this up just like this, and probably not too tight. Okay, so now I'm going to make that loop again. So I bring these together with your bottom, or your right hand on the bottom, bring it together. I'm going to bring your end up, over, and through, and I'm going to pull this tight. And now I have a second double hitch knot. Okay, so this side is done. So I'm going to scoot these 3 cords out of the way, and I'm going to repeat this process except for in reverse, because this time I'm going to want it to go this way. So my first cord of my 3 right ones is my filler cord. It's going to create my shape, right? So I take the one that's closest to it, and I'm going under, bringing it together, going over the filler cord, through the loop, and pulling. Okay, we're going to do that again. So I'm going to take this time my left hand, because I'm doing it in reverse, I'm bringing them together, I'm going over my filler cord, through the loop that was made, and I'm pulling it tight. So here's one double half hitch. Okay, so now I'm taking my second cord, bring this down here. Okay, so now my right hand is holding the filler cord right here. Okay, taking my left hand, I'm bringing these up together, going around over the top of the filler cord, through the loop that's made, and pulling it tight. Okay, we're going to do that again. Bring them together. I'm going to go up over the filler cord, find the hole, pull it through, and pull it tight. Okay, so here's my first V. Now on this keychain, I'm going to put a bead in here to fill in the center. So I'm going to take my 2 cords that are in the middle here. So right now I have 6. I'm going to have 2 cords here, 2 cords to the left, 2 cords to the right, 2 cords in the middle. These 2 cords are the ones that are going to get the bead. So I'm going to bring these together, and I'm going to probably just do one at a time. So I'm going to poke it through, twist, pull the strings, trying not to unravel it. There we go. And this is pretty, I think I'm going to just trim it. So I'm going to trim it. There we go. Okay. Take this through this bead. There we go. So now I have 2 cords to go through that bead. All right. So now let's go back to our sample here. So you can see it's double half hitch knots going to the left. Now we're going to make double half hitch knots going to the right. So the filler cord's going to make my shape. So this time I'm going to take my outermost left cord and I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to get these 3 right cords out of the way because this double half hitch are going to go this direction. So this is my filler cord. It's creating my shape. I want my shape to basically be a triangle around my bead. So this is my filler cord. Right now it's in my right hand. My first working cord is in my left hand. So I'm going to bring them together to make a loop. I'm going to go over the filler cord, through the hole, and pull tight. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Bring them together, go up and over the filler cord, through the hole, and pull it tight. Okay, now my next cord, which is the one in the center, it's the one that the bead goes through. I'm going to bring them together, go up and over through the hole, pull it through, pull tight. All right, so those 3 are done. Now I'm going to go to my 3 right. Okay, so I'm going to take them back into the center. So I'm going to use my farthest right one as my filler. So I'm going this direction. So right now my filler hand's in my left hand and my first working cord is in my right hand. So I'm bringing them together to make a loop. I'm going up and over the filler cord, pulling it through the circle and pull tight. Okay, so bring them together, up and over the filler cord and pull tight. That's 1. Okay, bring them together, up and over, pull tight. Okay, I need to finish that. Together, up and over, pull tight. Okay, now to finish this, I'm going to need to join the 2 centers together. So keeping my filler cord in my left hand, I'm going to take the other filler cord that I was using to go back this direction. I'm going to take it in my right hand and I'm going to tie another double half hitch. All right, there we go. So I now have a completed diamond. Okay, so I once again have 3 cords on the left and 3 cords on the right. I'm going to make the cords, or my shape is going to go this way, right? So I'm going to take this center cord is going to be my filler cord, and this one's going to be my working cord, and I'm going to make a double half hitch knot here. Okay, 1. 2. All right, so this one leaves this, I think, to be a nice pattern. So here are my 3 that I just did. I'm going to move them out of the way. Then I'm going to take these 3. Take this cord right here. It's going to go this direction, so it's my filler cord. Have that in my right hand, my first working cord in my left hand. I'm going to bring them together, up, over, and through, and pull tight. Okay. So 1, my next cord. All right, so now I have my diamond going out. I'm going to insert my beads again. So now I'm going to want to go back this direction. So here's my left 3, my right 3. I'm going to take my most left one and come back this direction. This is my filler cord. This is my working cord. Fillers in the right, working cords in the left. So you bring them together, up, over, and through, and pull tight. Up, over, and through, and pull tight. There's my 1. And my 2. Okay, so that's done. These 3 out of the way. I'm going to take my last 3. I'm going to take the one that's most on the right, my filler cord. I'm going to take the next one beside it, my working cord, bring them together, up, over, and through, and pull tight. Up, over, and through, pull tight. Okay, up, over, and through. So this is probably my favorite knot because I really like the look that it gives, but it's also one that's pretty tricky to get even. So it takes a lot of practice. Okay, now I'm going to finish this knot and get it nice and tight because this is going to seal our keychain. So my 2 center cords, I'm going to continue to leave my filler cord in my left hand. I'm going to bring my right together through, pull tight. All right, now I'm going to pull this fairly tight here because again, that's our very last knot. So here's our keychain. Now, if I like to finish this one at V, so I'm going to take my cords, I'm going to take these three, and I'm going to cut them at an angle. So kind of see how this angle, you're going to want to mock that angle. So maybe about here, trim, okay. Then I'm going to take these three, and I have this angle here. I'm going to go, there we go. Now, I like the look of it unraveled, so I'm just going to go back and unravel these strings. So right now they twist this direction, so I'm just going to twist the opposite and open those strings up, and I'm going to separate them. Just like that. Also on this specific knot, the double half hitch knot doesn't hold real well. It holds okay, but not super great. So if you unravel them, it'll also help keep that last knot, it'll just help it stay into place. Okay, so there are those three, and I'm going to untwist them and pull them apart. Untwist and pull them apart. Now, if you want to really give this a nice frayed look, you can just grab a fine-tooth comb, like people would comb their hair with, or like a cat brush, which I think you can get for maybe under $5. That's what this looks like right here, and you can comb this out to just really spread them out and pull them apart and really give it a lot more of a fluffy look. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm just going to trim this again, because once you comb it out, it definitely has a different look. And this also will just give you a nice, if you have good sharp scissors, just gives you a nice finish. All right, I just wanted to do a quick video to give you some tips and tricks if you're thinking about doing more than just keychains, if you're really interested in macrame. So first of all, I want to talk about the tools that you'll need. I've already said this before, but a really good pair of sharp scissors is very important. This is my fray tool. So this is actually just a cat hair brush, just metal bristles that are close together. I use this quite often. I also end up using my hot glue gun often. It's not a necessity, it just helps with projects. Especially I like to do circular projects a lot, and so they help anchor your cords so they're not slipping all over the place. Sometimes I'll use this to help your cord not fray at the end, to keep a knot in place, but you can also use fabric fray for that also. I use a tape measure a lot. This is just a small one, but it helps me get the right length for my cord, because almost any project you see is going to tell you, you need 4 4-foot cords. Sometimes it'll be in centimeters, sometimes it'll be in inches, but a good tape measure is good. Other than that, you're just going to want to get materials. I buy almost all of my materials on Amazon. In the month of October, I went through 20,000 feet of my major cord, which is natural 4mm cord. So I want to talk about that. There's 3 terms that you come across. One is string, 2 is cord, and the last one is rope. So the difference between them, this piece right here is actually macrame string. So this is a bunch of little strings twisted together, but not knotted in any way. So this is kind of difficult to start with, to use when you start with, because it comes apart very easily. But it also gives you a really good look. So this ornament that I made is all from string. So if I wanted a very wild and non-separated look at the end of my project, you're going to want to use a string. This right here is 5mm, this is 3mm string. It comes, most of the time, all of these come in a wide variety of colors. So this is string, okay? What I use probably 90% of the time is macrame cord. And that is these 3. These are different, but they are all cord. This is a 3mm cord. This is a 4mm cord. And this is a 5mm cord. So you can kind of see the difference in size here. So this is 5, this is 4, and this is 3. So it kind of depends on your project, but most of the plant hangers and tapestries, if they're under 18, if they're under 12 inches for sure, I use 4mm. If 12 to 18, I can go in between 4 and 5, but I use 5mm for anything up to 24 to 36 inches. It comes, you can get cord and string up to 12mm, but 3, 4, and 5 are your typical that you see most of the time. So cord are 3 strands woven together. That is all that you use today. The gray was 3mm, the natural was 4mm, but those are 3 strands that are actually wound together. They're very strong, and it gives you a very clean look, which is why I think I prefer it. That's more my aesthetic. The last thing, I don't have any samples because I didn't have any home, but the last is rope. And rope is 6 strings wound together. And that's what you would find like at a Lowe's. It would be more outdoor nylon. It's going to be very, very tough. The one thing about cord is that it's typically cotton, and so it's soft on your hands, but it does suck the moisture out of your hands. So you may want to have lotion whenever you work with this. But so rope might be like a hammock, or you might use rope for like outside hangers or things like that. So those are the main terms that you might need to know. Today we talked about lark heads knot, we talked about square knots, we talked about alternating square knots, we talked about half knots, and we talked about half hitch knots. There is an endless amount of knots out there that I'm constantly learning about, but those are the ones that make up a majority of what I do. So I wanted to show you some projects that I've done that once you have these skills, you can keep building on them to make all different kinds of things. So the first project is a plant hanger. So as you can see, I build it on a dowel rod. It has lark's head knots, has square knots, and it has a gathering knot. But that's it. You can do all of these knots. You could make this. Okay, the next project is a tapestry that I did. So again, lark's head knots, square knots, double half hitch knots. You know all of those knots. This is a basket that I made. They are all square knots with the exception of a gathering knot, but that's it, just a square knot. And then one of my last projects that I wanted to show you was a pillow that I made. It has a front and a back. So these have double half hitch knots, it has lark's head knots, and then it has like a diamond pattern, a weaving pattern in there. But so whenever you're talking about projects, some things to think about. What makes the project complicated or easy? The number of knots that you use and the amount of basic knots that you use are going to make it simpler. How often you have to alternate between knots also can make the project more difficult. And obviously the size of the project makes it a lot more difficult. You worked with 40H in cord, which were divided in half. So you were working with 24 inches. I've done projects that are like 3 feet wide by 10, they end up being like 6 feet long. And so when I start with a cord there, I'm starting with 30 feet. So 15 feet of cord on each side. That's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more difficult to get tight notes. So that's what makes things difficult. So if you're looking to start some projects, start with things with basic knots and things that are not going to end up being huge, that are going to start pretty small. I learned how to make lots and lots of different keychains because keychains, they're small projects, their materials aren't super expensive, and you can practice your knots over and over again, which will give you just a lot of experience so that your knots as you do bigger projects are nice and even. Thanks for participating. Feel free to give me, send me an email. My email is skip as in Paul, F as in Frank, ER at wellscolibrary.org. My name is Stephanie Kipfer, I'm in the children's room, and I'd love to talk to you if you have any more questions. Thanks so much.